Hmm? Ah!
You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This episode we are talking about the stop-motion animated horror comedy film Wendell Wild, directed by Henry Selick and released on Netflix October 28th, 2022.
Ooh. You brought this up when we did our look ahead, our second look ahead special.
Yes,
And
last season.
Yeah. When you brought it up, I had never heard of it. And when we decided to do it this week, I didn't look too much into it until I sat down to watch. And I've got thoughts about it. It kind of hit me.
Every time you say something like that, I'm like, well, good, I would hope so. This would be a really boring podcast if we had zero thoughts.
I have no thoughts. It was a movie and I watched it. There have been movies before that I've thought that, but I've been able to dig a little bit more out when we've talked about it. But this one, I have some thoughts about different things, and it kind of hit me like the Mitchells versus the Machines. Like, it just, not because it was the same animation, because it wasn't, but there was just something about the story that I found endearing. And kind of, there was a lot of heart, I think, in it. And a lot of sadness, too.
Yeah, I really enjoy, I didn't expect this because the same as you, like, I knew kind of what it was when I brought it up on the look ahead, where I was like, it's directed by Henry Selick, it's Jordan Peele writing and doing voice acting and stuff with it. I was like, it's a culmination of things we enjoy, so I don't know much any more than that, so we'll just give it a shot. And so I went in blind watching it, not expecting it to be as heavy thematically as it was in a lot of places, but then I ended up really enjoying that and finding some very poignant and important themes and topics and things in this movie, which again, Nimona was something like that I watched it because it was on the Oscar watch list last year, earlier this year, and probably never would have paid any attention to that movie. It wasn't for it being on the Oscar list. And so watching it and realizing, oh man. And so like between like Mitchells and the Machines, like you mentioned a little bit, and then like Nimona, which we covered, and this, I'm finding this world of like animated movies that have a lot of really important socio-political things and commentaries and things to say.
Yes.
And I'm like, holy crap, this is like a whole unfound, untapped thing that I didn't realize there's so much potential in some of these animated movies.
I know. It makes me want to pay more attention to what may be coming out further down the road, because I really enjoyed Nimona. I really enjoyed Mitchells versus the Machines, and I really enjoyed this one. Mm-hmm. I think because there's more than just heart in them. It's hard for me to put into words. There's just something very special, I think, with the creation of some of the characters that were included. Yeah. And I appreciate it so much. Especially with the world the way that it is right now, I feel like we need more of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great. We usually, when we do these animated movies, we keep it, our language and everything much more PG, or, for kids that are listening. We're going to go ahead and give a warning off the top that even though this is an animated film, we are going to break that rule a little bit. We are going to allow ourselves to just full-fledged, because I've got some more intense thoughts about some things that I don't want to bottle myself in. Maybe this was a PG-13 animated movie, so maybe we'll keep it PG-13. We'll not go too crazy with it, but there might be an F-bomb or two flying around sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. It's not going to be like when we've covered, I think even Coraline, we were rated G
Yeah.
for. It's not going to be like that. I mean, we'll do our best, but I feel like this movie, it gets my emotions, wound up.
I was like, I already know, like, I have a note that I'm going to go over that, like, only works with strong language, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So we'll do our best. However, we wanted to put that out there so parents would know it's not going to be the same as usual. So we'll kick it off, though, with some production notes. So this was filmed in Portland, Oregon, in a studio there. It was done during the COVID-19 pandemic, but also during the Oregon wildfires that were going on. And so the movie was affected not only by it being kind of isolated in the studio, but the COVID pandemic and these fires. And there actually were fires that impacted it. Originally, it was going to be released in 2021, and it wasn't until October of 2022 and late October of 22. So it got delayed just a little bit by extenuating circumstances, which I think we all can relate to at that time. It is based on Henry Selick's and Clay McLeod Chapman's unpublished book of the same name, from which Selick co-wrote the screenplay with one of our favorites, Jordan Peele. Premiered on September 11th at the Toronto International Film Festival. TIFF, yes. It was released in select theaters on October 21st, before the Netflix release. It's 105 minutes long. Pake, bring us a synopsis.
Two scheming demon brothers, Wendell and Wild, enlist the aid of 13-year-old Cat Elliott to summon them to the land of the living.
Did you get the feeling that this could have been named something else?
Yeah, I did a little bit. That it's interesting that they picked Wendell and Wild to be like the titular characters when they really are more side. Cat is very much the focal point of this movie. Of course, I mean, everything that Wendell and Wild do are important to the plot and what happens, but yeah, it is interesting that like they were what the movie was named after and not something else. I don't know, maybe just like, the Hell Maiden is not as marketable or something.
No, I would think that might steer parents away from it, even for their teenage kids to watch. And we were mentioning and talking about this before we started recording. It's not your conventional kids movie because I really think it's a stop motion animated film. I think that's made more for adults in some ways, because it tackles subject matter that is a bit dark for kids. I mean,
now I think it's an important movie for parents. For sure. Like there's definitely things that I think this movie could open up different conversations between kids and their parents. Maybe not too young, but like especially when you're getting into middle school, junior high.
Yeah.
Like 13, the age of Cat, and you're looking at kind of some of these like I said, like socioeconomics, and social awareness and political aspects that are in this. Like some of those conversations I think some older kids are ready for, and I think they can be. It's not a bad thing to talk about some pretty serious things with some kids a little early, to let them know what's going on in the world. It's not all puppies and rainbows.
No, and I think you're right. I think, 13, this is PG-13 movie. I think it would be probably a good time, and these conversations would probably start coming up at that time anyway, if not a little bit before. But there's so much I appreciated about this movie just because it didn't shy away from things. And it also presented some of the subject matter in a way that was more accepting, I guess, of
Mm-hmm.
certain things. And I really appreciated that because I don't think we have enough of it.
Yeah. It's good to talk about very serious subject matter in sort of a tongue-in-cheek satirical way, and I think it nailed some of that really well.
Yeah. Was it a perfect movie? No. It would be hard for me to find things to really pick apart.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of it was so well done. And the animation style was great.
Yeah, I mean, you know me as like a super fan that like I love stop motion animation stuff, so
yeah.
It was nice.
It was great because I wasn't sure when I, sat down to watch it because I hadn't looked at anything ahead of time. And when I sat down to watch it, it's like, oh my gosh, this is stop motion. It made me again want to go watch the Box Trolls again because I just love this style. And it just, though it wasn't just like it, it just reminded me of it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go watch it again. But we should probably get started the way that we usually do, which is to talk about characters.
All right. And then obviously where we start and the bulk of the notes that I've got, I think the most of the coverage where we're going to get like 50 to 60% of it out of the way is just with what we talked about, the real main character, even though it's not the title of the movie.
Yeah.
Cat.
Yeah, definitely. So Lyric Ross did the voice of Cat, and a couple of familiar names were in the running for it. It wasn't, it was more Storm Reed, of course.
Yeah.
Which we know. And Amandla Stenberg, who was Rue in The Hunger Games.
Yeah, she's starring in the Star Wars series, The Acolyte. Right?
Yeah, so, I mean, we're not talking about, actors who haven't done anything at all. We're talking about two that have.
Yes.
But I think Lyric Ross was perfect for this. I thought everything was wonderful about the way that she voiced this character. So
yeah, I really enjoyed that. I did wonder, like very early on, like whenever she's in the van headed back to the Catholic school, and they drive by the movie theater, the theater there that's shut down, and it was the Lyric Theater, and I was like, I wonder if they named it that after the voice actress. I was like, I don't know, maybe it's just a coincidence.
They could have. Yeah, so we meet Kat. She's just a kid. And with her parents at this town gathering, which looked like something you'd find in any small town, just, gathering. And you can tell that, to me, they came across as a very close family. They weren't very happy, though, that she had a candy apple that she was going to eat. But, we don't get to see her parents very long because within the first couple of minutes of the movie, they are in a crash. And Kat's mother gets her out of the car and tells her to hold her breath, and she goes, makes it to the top. But I'm scared of bridges. Like, I don't like bridges at all. So watching that, I was just taken back to that feeling of fear. Like, those... I was always afraid of bridges. I still am. I don't really like them. Because at that point, before that happens, you just get the feeling that Kat's got a nice little life. Like, things are very normal for her.
Yeah.
And then...
Interesting. Like, it's like a family dynamic that I'm like, man, that would be amazing to like... She's got a father. Like, I was like, I really liked, and I'll talk more about him, but the character of Delroy, her father.
Oh, so good.
I mean, he's a guy who owns a brewery, who is obsessed with 70s and 80s punk and ska bands. Like, yes.
I know, it's amazing. It's so...
That's my kind of guy.
So amazing.
Just spends his time brewing beer and listening to like 70s and 80s punk records on vinyl. I'm like, that's the guy I want to hang out with. Man.
It was so great. I just really enjoyed the little glimpse that we got to see of them at first. He just seemed like such a cool dad.
Yeah.
And her mom, they just seemed like a cute little family. You know, fun, quirky, interesting.
Yeah.
But Kat's life does not go in the direction that it should have gone because losing her parents, she is left without anyone, really.
Yeah, I said it's an animated movie starting with the death of the main character's parents. Surprisingly, actually pretty typical.
Yeah. Man. That's where I wonder how many parents will let their kids under 13 watch this, because I'm just not sure. But I do agree with you that I think it's a movie that kids that are, you know, of that age should watch.
Yeah.
So.
And then, yeah, before even getting into themes and stuff, I mentioned that the music, this entire soundtrack is incredible. I'm obsessed with the music of this movie. Just incredible choices for the soundtrack. Like, even not just, I mean, it's very thematic. Like I said, it's all like, it kind of like revolves around Delroy's taste. Like it is. It's all 70s and 80s punk rock bands and ska bands and a couple other like, you know, like jazz and kind of blues kind of artists and stuff. But the cool thing is all of the artists featured on the soundtrack are all like rock bands that are either fully black members or have black front men and women like singers. So it's like a very like well chosen soundtrack in that way to kind of represent that family and what was kind of going on in the center of this, which I thought was so well done. And even song choices just themselves, like it hit me with like the second song we hear of the movie is that River. It's like a BA about something. I hadn't heard the song before, but like lyrically, I mean, like, you know, Kat is in the van going back and she sees still like the guardrail hasn't been replaced after 5 years because the place has been like all worn down and everything. But she's having these flashbacks of what happened to her parents as like the lyrics, "I will come to your river," are like playing over in her head. And it's just like, it set that mode immediately. I was like, all right, I'm in. This is great.
Well, we always talk about movies being a character. I think in this case, in some of this, it was almost like a storyteller or a narrator in the background that it just added to what you were watching. It gave you just a little bit more and brought you further into the movie that you were watching.
Yeah. The music wasn't just fitting soundtrack
right.
What was going on, but it was ingrained in the scenes and what was happening.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting because Henry Selick actually met Fishbone, which is where they got the inspiration for some of their music choices.
Well, the whole movie, Delroy is wearing that Fishbone logo t-shirt, which I noticed like immediately and was like, yes.
Exactly. Yeah, Selick actually met some of them. They're still performing, and he met them in the late 80s. And he directed a music video for one of their songs, Party at Ground Zero. And that just kind of spearheaded this inclusion of one of their songs in the movie, and then just this music connection for Delroy. And it enriched things. Like the music wasn't just an afterthought, it just enriched it. It enriched your experience when you were watching the movie. So
like I found like a playlist on Spotify that's just, you know, the soundtrack of this movie. I was like, I could just sit and listen to that because it's so good.
Yeah, the last song in particular that it was playing at the very, very end, I think it's called Boot.
Yes.
Just listening to the lyrics of that, I don't know, there was something about it that just I connected with. And throughout the movie, I kept feeling myself. Every song that played, it was like, oh, wow. And I had captions on. So if I didn't hear something correctly, or if I was seeing the lyrics come up, and it's like, oh man, this is just, it just added to the experience. Like if I had gone to see this in the movie theater without captions, I still would have really liked it. But having the captions on really added to my viewing experience because it just connected the dots so much easier visually.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that... I knew that you'd bring music to the table, and I'm glad that you did, because I knew we could talk about it, because it was just...
Yeah. It's one of the biggest things with this movie. Like, it's perfect.
Yeah.
But back to, character-wise, I will talk more about music, for sure. I've got more notes. But yeah, we see that after that happened, Kat kind of took a dark path after her parents' death, got into some trouble. It wasn't specified immediately, but we kind of see later on that a lot of it was just... I mean, I remember I lost my mother at a young age. Not a little bit older than she was when it happened, where, a lot you're changing in a lot of ways and kind of growing as a person you're supposed to be and where you're going to go. And so I see where, like, I definitely had a very rebellious kind of youth in a lot of those same ways too. So you see that, and then so we do learn that a lot of, like, the main trouble that she got into is because she was kind of just more of a loner and had that rebellious kind of thing, that she got picked on and bullied a lot. And it just seems like it was more retaliating to a bully that went too far.
Mm-hmm.
And finds herself in all this trouble. By 13, she's already, like, been in juvie and in and out of group homes and all of these things that just, I mean, you can't even imagine, like, just the kind of effect that has on the, growing mind of a child.
Well, it's such an unstable world that she had. And like you said, those are the years that you're vulnerable and you're learning about yourself and about the world around you. It's really rough. Like, those are difficult years. Those are difficult years to deal with when you have two parents.
Yeah.
Not when to not have either of her parents. She doesn't have that stable adult. And I know before we've talked about, sometimes it only takes one stable adult in a child's life to make a difference. And this is a situation where she really didn't have people looking out for her. Yeah.
We did see, and I love, again, the flashbacks kind of, or not even flashbacks, when she's dealing with the fever, as Mr. Manberg calls it. But where, she has to kind of face that, and we'll talk about that more later. But then through that, we see, like, what happened, how she got in trouble. But even, like, the first group home we go into, like, the person running that is depicted with these money, dollar signs in their eyes, because it's this whole, I will talk more about this, but is this school to prison pipeline idea. That's what this movie is about. And you already see that with these group homes, that it's just like people who are able to profit off of kids in need. And it's that situation.
It's such a look at capitalism. Mm-hmm. It is such a look at money being the sole focus.
Yeah. How do we profit off of the suffering of other people under the guise of, like, oh, we're helping them, we're rehabilitating them, we're giving them this, we're giving them that. Just like, no, money is the bottom line. It always has been. Right.
And you're not really setting them up for success. What you're going to do is make it so that they get out and then they have to come back.
Yep.
And that is just more money. That's what you're looking at. I mean, even the priest at the school that she ends up getting to go to, at Rustbank Catholic, all-girls school, that priest was doing it for the same reason. Although there were things about him I started to wonder. I mean, is he really trying to save the school? I'm not really.
He just wanted money in his own pocket.
Yeah.
Too, I believe. Yeah, it was.
That was a little confusing.
Kat caught him out on that pretty early. He's just like, are you trying to save the school? Are you trying to help me? Or are you just.
Yeah.
Because it's a tax break and you have a deal with the prison and you have this. It's like.
Right.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
Yeah, and she is not afraid to call people out, and I like that about her. That was one of the things that stood out to me about her character right away when we meet her on the even just on the van, is that she's been through a lot, and it's made her tougher than she probably needed to be at this age. And she's kind of built up, I think, these walls. She doesn't want any friends. She doesn't want people in her life, I think, because she's lost everyone. And when you're bounced all over the place, you have no stability and nothing you can ground yourself with.
Yeah. I will say where I was going with, that thought is you mentioned, like, nobody. But we do see that maybe she was a social worker or something, but she had one constant. And even in those like flashback kind of things with this Miss Hunter.
Yes.
Who seemed to be like a good, at least some stable kind of thing for her to kind of hold on to, that was there with her through going to the different group homes and going to juvie and going to like the prison and then going to the school and being there with her. And I liked that character. And again, the music aspect, one of the first things I noticed, other than like she has like the markings and stuff, and it was very much a well depicted like native kind of like indigenous person, which was really cool. But then she's got that Link Ray shirt on, which again, 70s kind of music and stuff. A great, indigenous musician who went on to do a lot of, Fire and Brimstone, Rumble, all of those.
Yeah.
So,
well, the actress that voiced that character she's actually Cree Metis. Mm-hmm. So she's indigenous and she has one of the indigenous chin tattoos, like for her people. And
I've seen that. It's Tantu something. I didn't have it marked down.
Tantu Cardinal.
Yeah, because I have seen her in several things, in live action and stuff too. She's an incredible actress.
Yeah. I like that Henry Selick, he goes the extra mile with what he's doing. Because this movie to me also was about, like, diversity was a thing in this movie as far as the different types of characters that we got to meet. I appreciated that.
Yeah. Which I mean, Henry Selick. It's like, it's got a bit of a Coraline vibe. And that's, Henry Selick directed both. There's different animators. So, it's not Leica, but it's still stop motion. And it really felt similar in a lot of ways, which was cool. But also different and heavier in a lot of ways, too.
I don't know. Would you put the other mother up against... Would you put the other mother up against Ermengarde Claxon? Because that could be quite talking about rumbles, that could be quite a battle there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so we get to the school, as you mentioned, sit there, because Kat is this part of this program.
Yes.
Yeah, this Break the Cycle program that, again, sounds great on paper until you realize just the underlying what it is the school to prison pipeline idea. You can sell it as, we're giving these, troubled kids a second chance and putting them in this private school and seeing how they can do, knowing full well they're expecting them to screw up so that they can, expel them from school, deny them an education, and then they wind up in prison doing jobs for no money. That's what the idea is.
And I think this was in the works before her parents died. Claxcorp was trying to buy up everything so they could build this. They were going to build something.
They wanted to build the prison.
Yeah.
This big private prison. And buy out the whole town, level everything, and then basically just replace the town with this big private prison. And the council people of the town fought back constantly with them, including Kat's parents.
Yes.
As, he owned the cute big brewery, and he was definitely a cornerstone and staple piece of this town.
Yeah.
And I think, their deaths really leveled the playing field or tilted it in the wrong way for the community versus Claxcorp.
Yeah, I think they were that was a catalyst for all of this. And I'm sure we'll talk about the Claxons a little bit later, but they really were, to me, the quintessential, we'll do whatever it takes to get what we want.
Yeah,
people.
Well, so we learned, the brewery burned down, and it was, really bad, and all these people died there. And then you start to see, it was and then Claxcorp was able to come in and start, moving everything out, and people left, and they just had run of the town themselves. And then immediately, even before the story even went there, I was like, well, that makes the fire there very suspicious.
Yeah, and there were not that many people left. We had Fozzie who sold falafel, and
it was good to see him still at it when we saw him. It's he's still got his falafel food truck. He's not going anywhere, which we because he's one of the guys on the community council there, one of the town council, so he's sticking it out.
Yeah, And so there was, I at first thought everyone died in that fire, but it seems like based on the ending of the movie, people left. Like they just left.
It was a huge profit point and community point of the town. And so whenever the brewery went, lots of other local businesses started going, and it just, everything in the town, it just kind of crumbled apart. Its whole economy fell apart and people left.
Yeah. And so we're left with, here comes Kat on this new adventure that's supposed to be, giving her a second chance, when we know the underlying is, it's not about second chances. It's about, well, when she screws up, this is just more clout for us to need to build that prison.
Yep. Yeah. And she's immediately like a huge fish out of water situation here with, Siobhan, Sweetie, and Sloane. The three of them. Interesting characters. Like, at first, you're like, I'm going to hate them. And then you're actually like, they're fine.
Yeah.
But, she calls them, like, the toy poodles. And, yeah, they're a lot right out of the gate. But as they're not, like, mean girls.
No.
But they're picking at her a little bit. They're not necessarily, like, bullies or mean girls. They're just...
I looked at them...
Interesting.
I looked at them like they wanted her to be their special project.
Yeah.
Including her and having her be part of their group was an important thing. But I also think, based on a photo that we saw later that used to include another person, that maybe they wanted her to be the replacement for their friend.
So I wouldn't say that they were like bullies or bad people, but they were very much like in their boxes. And so, yeah, Raul was part of their group with them. And then whenever he was different, they didn't like bully him or weren't really mean to him.
No.
They're still friendly, but it was like, you're not within the group anymore.
Right.
Like, you're not one of us.
Right.
We'll respect you, but you're not there. And so, yeah, I feel like they're trying to kind of, it's a special project. It's like, can we take this weird goth girl and turn her into one of us?
Yeah. And I think, especially Siobhan continued to make an effort over and over again to connect with her. But Kat really didn't want any friends. She's used to being on her own and not having anyone else to count on because she's just been shuttled around.
I just think of Ron Funches. I don't need no new fans!
And the whole time, I'm thinking, oh, Kat, but this is an opportunity because you can meet someone that can change your life. If you let the walls down just a little bit, like, you might meet someone who can be a force in your life to help you. But I get why she cut herself off from everyone and didn't want to put herself out there. I totally get it.
Yeah. Which, to skip to the end, because again, when people are listening to this, we assume you watched the whole movie, so we don't have to worry about spoiling things. You're not watching along as we're talking. So,
no.
Yeah, it's a big lesson that Kat has to learn, to where I do like, at the end of the movie, she has Raul, she has Siobhan, she has Wendell Wild, she has
Sloane and Sweetie.
Sister Helly. She has a group of people that she can lean on and she's open to, and she can, and I like that we do see that arc and that change.
Yeah, she has a support system.
Yeah.
Which she hasn't had before, and I'm sure it was hard for her to get to that point, but I think throughout the process of this movie and everything that she goes through with them, that she's able to let her walls down and let people in.
Yeah, of course, I think a big part of why Siobhan keeps really trying to befriend her and be nice to her is she saves Siobhan's life, where she gets this vision of the brick falling and then pushes Siobhan out of the way and saves her. New power, who dis?
Exactly.
What was that? Which was interesting to kind of see where that went. Also, we hadn't mentioned Gabby the goat. Gabby Goat was just adorable.
So adorable. I wondered, though, with her getting this power, like, what is this one of those things that, one, when you get to be a certain age, it comes about, or two, she's going back to her hometown and that kind of influences it to come to the surface?
Yeah, I don't know if it was they don't really specify. We see that Sister Helly also was a Hell Maiden, which is interesting that she's a nun, but also, like, was connected to demons in hell, which is interesting.
Yeah, it does seem kind of like not what it's not what I would expect.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know if she was chosen or if it was like a genetic like thing or if it's just a random happenstance or if it's because of her situation in life and it was just, yeah, I don't know. They didn't really specify.
I wondered if it was like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Like, you're just chosen. You're the chosen one. I don't know.
Maybe. But yeah, so there's a lot that I could kind of skip. It's about Wendell and Wild and how they connect with her. But yeah, she becomes this held maiden for these demons that have their own goals and their own dreams and can try to use her to accomplish that. And so it's this deal of, you know, basically you summon us up from hell so we can do what we need to do. And in return, we'll bring your parents back to life. Of course, they're flat out lying. They don't know how to do that at first. But they figure out a way. It's at least worth a shot. So she's just got to go get this Beelzebub and use it to perform the summoning ritual. I love Beelzebub so much. The voice is adorable.
The voice is adorable. And you think at first this is an adorable bear, but it's like, there's something a little bit sinister under the surface.
Yeah.
However, it doesn't take away.
I love that kind of thing. Yeah, just that rejoice, it's a new day in your miserable lives. Like, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it was too cute. It was one of the things in this movie where it's like, okay, this should be terrifying, but I can't help it. It's adorable.
Yeah. So she goes and does this like ritual summoning thing, which I did translate the Latin.
Oh, you did?
The bear. Yes, because I was curious. And it actually ends up being kind of a foreshadowing, or not really spoiler, because you think it's like, oh, they messed up the translation a little bit. There's a wrong word in there. And then, no. It kind of foreshadows something, which was cool. But the Latin that the bear has her recite is translated to, through the powers of the Virgin, the gates of hell can be opened so that the demons can return to their parents.
Oh, wow.
And whenever I translated that, because I just did it right at the time that it was happening, I was like, no, the demons aren't going to their parents. That's her parents. Like, was there like a grammatical mistake or something? But then later we do see Belzer is the father of all these demons that Manberg has been holding on to, and he gets all of his children back and all the demons. And you're like, oh, there's a whole bigger picture thing here. That's crazy.
And we're not privy to that at the beginning.
Yeah.
We are not privy to that at all. And so at the end, when it's all like, when Belzer shows up and starts talking about his kids disappearing, it all starts to make sense. Yeah. But now knowing that translation, it is foreshadowing of what's coming.
Yes.
I mean, but I have to say, I don't think Wendell and Wild knew that connecting with Kat was going to bring their siblings back. Like, that was not something I think they were debating.
But it was Beelzebub that came to them first and set them on this goal. So, like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Like, there's a whole other goal, like, behind the scenes. It was interesting.
And the Beelzebub belonged to Manberg.
Yes.
So the Beelzebub would know that all of the siblings were there. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So interesting. That translation opens a lot of additional thinking I feel like I have to do about things.
Yeah. It's really cool, actually. And then it's another thing that, like, this, the oath of loyalty, the swearing allegiance, that causes this, like, fever that, like, forces Kat to have to face her fears and her past, comes about just, like, on a whim because Wendell and Wild are just, like, riffing. And they're like, we gotta buy time. You have to swear allegiance to us and do our bidding. And they're just, like, pulling it out of their ass. But then, like, it ends up being a thing that you're not supposed to do in that situation she was in. And it's like, well, great.
I thought it was really clever how it looks like a bite wound on her hand. But then it's like she puts it up over her mouth and it just forms like this mouth and it all aligns. And I thought that was really cool. Clever.
Yeah, the skull mouth.
Yeah.
One of the demons called her.
It's like, okay, this is different.
And there's like this demonic compulsion that's like forcing her. Like she has to fight against it in order to do things that she wants to do that's not aligned with what Wendell and Wild told her to do.
Right.
And so that was really interesting that then she has to kind of like fight against that. And then Sister Helly has to help her confront that, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But, because again, she does return to her parents. Raoul, we'll talk about him more too, does raise the parents from the dead himself, since Wendell and Wild decide they're not going to do it.
The hair cream.
And
we'll get to the hair cream, but oh my god.
Oh man.
I'm holding on to something that I just will say once we get to the beginning of Wendell and Wild.
But it was a really heartfelt moment and kind of emotional moment where Kat finally gets to reunite with her parents. And she's a little scared at first because they've been dead for a few years and they look dead.
Not quite as bad as the forefathers.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Whew. The old guard.
There was not enough makeup to cover up everything that needed to be covered up.
Literal corporate zombies.
Yes.
I appreciated that. That was really fun, tongue in cheek. But she's kind of scared of them and they turn her away, but she's like, no, I still love you and this is important. And they have that moment. And again, like the music that's playing when she walks into the house that you can tell. I was like, Delroy Elliott is really into X-Ray Specs. Like that's obviously his favorite band by like a million miles.
Absolutely.
Which then made me like, I did a lot of like research into the music because of course I did. And fun fact, the singer of X-Ray Specs, Polly Styrene, is her stage name, but her real name was Marion Elliott, which is the surname of the family. So I thought that was really cool.
That's where I've heard of that before, because polystyrene, that icon.
She I think she only released 2 X-Ray Specs albums and then like one of her own, and died young, and I mean like 53 or something. But like
yeah, she did. She's an icon.
So X-Ray Specs was her band that she was the front person of, and Delroy's favorite band apparently, because there's so much. He's listening to that whenever she goes in the house, but also whenever she has the boombox that she got from him. Most of all she's playing are X-Ray Spec songs, and
I love that boombox. Who didn't have a big boombox when they were kids? Like, it was.
I had mine. Yeah,
almost too heavy to carry, like when you're little. But oh my gosh, I love that it still had a little tape, like you could see the little tape thing where it was just. I got a little nostalgic.
Yeah, just his Delroy's taste in music that makes up the soundtrack. Like I mentioned, the fishbone shirt and lots of things.
I love how it ties together. It just all fits and adds to the story.
Yes.
And it should. Like, to be a proper soundtrack, it should be adding, not just there as fodder in the background.
Yeah, like, if there was like an Oscar category for excellence in soundtrack, putting together a soundtrack, man, this would have been.
Well, Pake, it is great that we give out our RFYL awards, and let's just kind of watch and see how many movies we cover this season that have soundtracks that we're excited about. Because I could see it being a category we could add to our RFYL awards.
Could be interesting, yeah.
So let's pay attention to it. We'll put a
like
pin in it.
There's a music category that's like, I guess that is what that is, but a lot of that's score.
Yeah.
But like, as far as like actual songs chosen to carry it,
it's an art form to be able to put that together. And TV, there are TV series that do it very, very well.
Sweet Tooth, that I'm covering on Strange Indeed right now.
My gosh, yes.
Has incredible music, what, I don't know what the term of that, but whoever's in charge of soundtrack of pieces of music that they're like, from other artists that they're putting together for an episode or something.
Yeah. They're
really good at it.
I feel like they collate it. They cultivate it. They pull in the pieces that are going to be the most impactful. Yes. Yellow Jackets is the TV series I cover. Yes. Same thing. It adds to your experience watching. And that is how you know I will never, ever look at bullets with butterfly wings the same way again after Yellow Jackets.
Yeah.
That's how you know it's effective.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of shows that do it well. Like it's an art for sure, is being able to cultivate is a good word.
Yeah.
To put together a soundtrack, cultivation. But yeah, back on Kat. Good thinking with the hot sauce to buy that time for an escape, save Raoul, and get out of there away from Wendell Wild, because they were not happy with him raising the Elliots without their consent.
No, because that ties into a whole thing with Wendell and Wild that we'll get to. There's a reason for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was good there. And then with the mark and this swearing of allegiance causing more and more problems, Sister Helly is there to kind of help her and take her back to the school, which I was like, all of these tools of demonology in a Catholic school girls
seems a bit odd.
Catholic girls' school basement. I was like, it does seem odd, but I was like, I guess it's not as crazy as a regular school. The fact that it's a Catholic school, I guess, makes it make a little more sense. It kind of tracks. Because there are sects of like Catholicism and stuff that are really into demonology and like the other like occult side of things. It's interesting.
Yeah. I thought there were an unusual number of demons in this Catholic school.
Yeah.
In jars. Use a little vac. Oh, we'll get. Oh my God. So crazy.
Yeah, this demon allegiance is a problem. Helly blood bonds with her to help her through that. And I was wondering, is like, you know, is she going to grow? Because then we learned that Helly is also a held maiden, or was, and it's, is Kat going to grow and have like the powers and stuff? And we learned Kat's eventual power is, as a held maiden, is this foresight, being able to see the future and change the future based on what you see. So the powers are different for different held maidens, because Sister Helly's is this like slithering hell smoke that she can just travel quickly and kind of slither around, which was cool. It was very sus at first. I was like, I don't think I trust her, but then you realize she was one of the good ones.
And voice, oh my God, Sister Helly, voiced by the amazing
freaking Angela Bassett.
I mean, come on, they did have some great voice actors in this.
Yes. I mean, we didn't mean like Ving Rhames as Belzer. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Absolutely. And freaking James Hong had a very, like, a small-ish part in this, as Father Level Bests. Bests? What on earth is...
But he was great in that role, too. It was like, immediately you're like, oh, James Hong.
Oh, yeah. So amazing.
Yeah, but that scene was definitely, that I'm about to talk about, as maybe my favorite of the movie, as far as like emotional and like, here's the stuff that kids need. And it's the important things. Is that blood bond kind of moment where Sister Helly takes Kat in and like, you're going to lose yourself to this fever, as Manberg is calling it. Unless basically what she has to do is face her inner demons, so to speak, by facing her past, her regrets, her fears, and learn to take control of them instead of letting them control her.
Yes.
Which was a very important message there. And then I liked especially the way they ended it. Was not only she tear this machine down, this thing, this creature, and take control of it, but then at the end she forgives it and embraces it and brings it back into part of her. Yes. Where it's like you can't get rid of your past, you can't get rid of your mistakes, but you accept them and you make them part of who you are and you grow from it. And I thought that was powerful.
That was incredibly powerful, because it showed that while something traumatic can sometimes make you feel like you're underwater, you can get past it and accept that it's part of you, but it doesn't have to rule who you are. It doesn't have to make you be that way all the time. You don't have to be scared. You don't have to live in that world. You can embrace it and bring it into you and move on.
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing advice, especially for kids who are going through so much at 13, 14 years old. it's so hard to navigate all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a pretty special moment. Her embracing her inner demon at the end really got me too. I felt
I loved it.
Man, she's tearing it down. And then she forgives it. Oh, wow. I feel like that entire scene needs to be like cut out and shown in schools.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or at least in therapy. Like, I feel like it's so helpful.
Yeah, I love that. That was probably, said thematically, my favorite part of the movie is just like, that's the message. One of the messages. There's a few, but that was a really good one. And then let's see, next note. Again, we're just going back to the music because I always like talked about it. Again, Delroy's like classic punk and ska bands, the 70s and 80s, to where even he's introducing Raul to it. I love seeing Raul jamming out to that Death record, and it's just like, yeah.
Yeah, he got a bit distracted from things he should have been paying attention to, but I do get it that sometimes the music overtakes you and you can't. You just go into a zone, I guess. And I think that's okay. Music can be an escape. It can be comfort. It can be so many things.
Yeah. So Raul's a little distracted because, I mean, hey, Death is a great band. Incredible. So jam out. But, yeah, because of that, Wilma and Delroy are taken. But then what follows after that, I thought was an interesting choice, is like the rescue of Delroy and Wilma was very anticlimactic. But that's okay. It really showed that like Wendell and Wild were not that bright or tough at all. Like, it was almost like the demons are a lot scarier to a child than what they really are. Like, kids tend to blow things up. And
it's like the boogeyman for a kid. Like, you think it's a terrible thing, but then when you get older...
And it is to them.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is it's not like they're overreacting. I don't want to make it sound like I'm saying like, oh, kids are overreacting. No, because where they're at, like, the smaller things are major to them. And it's not that they're overblowing it, it's that smaller things are that big of a deal to them and that important, and they need to be treated as big problems because they are to them. Because in their window of life and what they have, like, the small problems are the biggest problems they've faced in their short life, and it's still a big deal. And
they grow. As you grow, it's like, do you ever remember being little and you go somewhere and you think things are just so, so big? And then you grow up and you go back to see those things and they're all so much smaller. I think it's like that with things that you're scared of as a kid or things that frighten you. You look at them later and you're kind of like, oh, why was I scared of that? It's because when you're little, so much is scary.
Yeah. And it's like, it's valid. So that's something like that when I work with kids is like, I try to learn. So I'm making, that's like a little teaching moment I'm throwing in here by just what I've experienced is, I think some people, and they don't mean to do it in a bad way or a mean way, but like a lot of people tend to kind of write things off and go, oh, it's really not that big of a deal. This kid will get over it. Just brush it off, move on. And it's like, no, sometimes you need to meet them at their level and go, yeah, shit sucks. Like, I get it. Like, to me, this might not seem like that big of a problem, but to you, it's really crushing you right now. So let's work through it. Let's figure it out. Like, your problems might seem small to me, but they're valid and they're big to you. And let's deal with that.
Exactly. You have to get to their level. You have to figure out not why they're giving you a hard time. Why are they having a hard time? What's going on? What's the root of what's happening? And this movie captured so much of those little things, like addressing those little things. Yeah. And I really appreciated that. And I go back to something, and I can't even remember if we talked about it before or if we've talked about it on the podcast. But I think this would be a movie that kids in the, 12 to 14 range should totally watch. And maybe at home with their parents, like, be at home with their parents and watch this movie because it addresses a bunch of different things that may help them have these conversations with their parents.
Yeah. And then, of course, they had to throw in a good bit of humor in that scenario. I do love the, I thought the way that Kat was talking about her demons is like, I thought you guys would be taller. And I love Jordan Peele's as Wild, his response that she's like, I am taller. And he's wearing Kat's boots, which, it's hilarious. And then when Kat shows up and dispatches them so easily, and she's like, why were you doing this? Or like, why would you do that? And he's like, well, they were my size. And it's like, not the boots. I thought that was really funny.
I love that.
Like,
those boots were pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Those were stylish boots. I'm glad that she got them back, because I loved at the beginning of the movie when she is given her uniform and she goes in and she just cuts up the skirt and puts the safety pins on it and then puts on her boots, and she's just making it hers.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that so much. It's like,
Definitely.
Okay, yes, good. Be you, Kat. Be you. It's so important, I think, for kids to get that message too. That it's okay to be an individual.
Yes. And then I guess we get to, and I'm again skipping over a lot of like the deal with Wendell and Wild and the Klaxons and stuff, but we'll talk about those. But it culminates, of course, with a bigger battle with the bulldozer zombies, as I call it.
Oh, that was so fun. Set
to what a great song, TV on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
Love that song. It's a great band. I've actually seen them live.
You have?
Yes, they're really fun. Great band, which, yeah, again, as I mentioned, like the soundtrack has just lots of great alternative and punk bands and stuff that are consisting of black artists. Between, the specials, TV on the radio, Living Color, Death, Fishbone, Hot Chocolate, Big Joni, all of them are all in here, like it's...
It's a potpourri of music amazingness, basically. It just fits. It all sounds like it's like a thread where there's just some part of it that sounds similar, so it connects.
Yeah. And with that fight, she has people behind her. She has Wendell and Wild. She has the help of Belzer. She has Sister Helly, and she's got Siobhan, and she's got all these, she's got these people to lean on that help fight back. And she sees that future change. She gets that other vision, that flash of the future changing where, Raoul's got the brewery workers as witnesses that he's able to raise, and the soul jockeys come in and take out the zombies.
I love
and there's
the
these
soul jockeys.
Yeah, and things. Things turn around. The Klaxons are arrested and taken behind bars. The town, she gets to see this, vision again. The town is going to come back stronger than ever. People are returning. The brewery is rebuilt. The businesses come back together. And it's great. I really loved this movie. I wasn't expecting it when I started. I was like, this will be different. This is interesting, kind of dark, kind of creepy, but we'll see where it goes. And by the end, I'm just like,
I really like
touching.
it. I know. Yeah. I feel like that with some of the animated films that we've covered on this podcast, that I've gone into it thinking, okay, I'm watching a cartoon. But I've ended up coming out of it feeling different. Just something about each one touches me in a way that I didn't expect. And this one, as even in the first 10 to 15 minutes, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm all in. There are just things about this movie that have pulled me in right from the beginning. And so I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah. And also Wendell and Wild's dream fair that they keep talking about the whole movie turns out to actually seem like it's going to be a pretty amazing afterlife destination. Everybody's kind of like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
These guys aren't as much idiots as we thought. They're actually good at designing an afterlife theme park.
Yeah, and I think having Belzer, their dad, be kind of on board with it at the end, because he destroyed his regular one. That did not seem like a fun experience. Maybe this one will be better.
Yeah, at first though, because I was like, hey, if the Scream Fair, which was his, because that's the Dream Fair is what they built after, but
yeah,
Belzer's Scream Fair. I was like, the first thing we got was freaking, was the specials. It was Ghost Town playing. I'm like, well, it can't be a bad place if they're blaring the specials. I'm in.
I don't know. It seemed really scary. Things. Yeah, it was a bit extreme.
Yeah. So that's really all that I have on Cat as the main thing, but definitely other characters to throw in a couple little thoughts.
We've covered everything that I had, so Where do you want to head next? Do you want to hit Wendell and Wild?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Now we can go to the title of the movie.
And now I can tell you, I could not understand what on earth with the hair planting they were doing. What on earth they were doing. Like, what? I didn't get it until it all zoomed out and it was like, oh my God, they're planting hair in his head. And it never stays, but you don't realize that at the time.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stay. The hair cream was not a permanent solution to a situation. It ran out.
Yeah. But it was their punishment for going against their father's wishes and wanting to build their own dream fair and all of these things. And, as we learn, we think Belzer's just this huge, evil figure. And really, it's he's just sad because all of his kids are gone. They all left him and he doesn't know where they went.
I know. And it's ridiculous because you're trying to find a bad guy. Because when I start watching movies like this, I'm looking for who's the bad guy? And you think it might be him at first, but partway through, I realized the Klaxons were the bad guys. and I didn't realize the fact that Buffalo Belzer was his name. Yeah. Buffalo Belzer. Okay?
Yeah.
I had to laugh. And I realized that he wasn't super scary. And then when we found out about his kids missing, and it all came full circle, it's like, he's just a dad. He's just missing his kids. He doesn't know where they are.
He's just a big old, arch demon who misses his family. Yeah.
He only has probably the nitwits of the family left in Wendell and Wild. Who, Key and Peele.
Just to see them together again as these demon brothers. And I love that the character models, the puppets or whatever, the stop motion, things, look like them.
It was on purpose, physically. Yes.
Yeah, they actually modeled them after Jordan Peele and Keegan-Michael Key. I was like, I love it.
I found it funny because I found out that they actually watched hours of Abbott and Costello to prepare for this. And I'm like, haven't you worked together enough to be able to do this? But I guess it's just that these characters are just very different. But it was
for them to, channel kind of a different feel
type of comedy, yeah.
Yeah. But it was perfection. I loved it.
I
thought they were great together. They always are.
I've never seen them in anything. I've never seen it at all.
You got to brush up on your Key and Peele.
I don't. You know what? Imagine the list of things I have to watch is like yours. I may never get there. There are priorities, but yeah.
Yeah, planting hair and tripping on hallucinogenic hair cream.
Oh my God. And the tick that they kept killing and bringing back to life. I'm like, why are we doing this? And then he put it down his pants. I was like, why are you doing that? And it all made sense later. Because
he's got to have a place to store the snacks for the soul jockeys.
I love the soul jockeys. I couldn't figure out what on earth they looked like or what. They just were like birds, but for some reason I thought they were horses too. It was just weird. And then they didn't want to kill the creature that was pulling their cart because
it was a tardigrade? Did they have a tardigrade? And then they strapped mechanical legs on it.
I don't know. They're like, oh, we can't.
That's what it looked like to me.
We can't test it on that because what if he doesn't come back and we'll miss him? And I'm like, okay, they do have hearts in there.
Right. Yeah. It was just they're too nervous to use that as the test subject, Sparky. So it's we'll wait till we get up to the top and then we'll use it on the parents. And then maybe our promise won't be a lie. I don't know. We'll see. And then it's then they come up with what a hook for an amusement park is bringing the dead back to life. That we can make some money with that. Of course, they realize after bringing back Father Best's that they hit a bad market. There's nobody here for you to profit off of and open this amusement park and get that money for until he remembers, actually, the Klaxons might be able to use a couple revivifications.
Just a few of the council members.
Yeah.
who looked like they were out of like the 1800s or
right.
I'm like, yeah, so
yeah, I
strange.
love that they when they head up, or even before, but then when they get up there, that they have this whole like snake oil salesman vibe to them, which was hilarious.
Well, they had that weird cart that they rode to get there, and then it's the view that we got of them getting there was just like, is this an
well, on the way up, they
on the way up
they took a wrong turn at Albuquerque and wound up in a different spot,
and they couldn't find Kat. They were looking for her. They couldn't find her. I mean, they were clever in some ways, but they also were nitwits in other ways, like the way that they were.
Yeah, I just Key and Peele together, great. And then when Belzer makes his appearance, I was like, "Oh no, it's CM Punk!" Oh no, never mind, it's Belzer.
Thank heavens for that.
I was like, "Who's making their entrance? I know this music." Oh, Belzer.
Yeah, Belzer. Okay. Thank goodness.
Which again, he was less of a threat than expected. We talked about that a little bit. But all he needed was just to be reminded that he was a parent, and then be reunited with his children thanks to Manberg. And then he reveals that the effects of the cream won't last forever. Promotes his sons to fair designers, and then just bounces on back to the underworld. That's all he really gets to do there.
Oh, Belzer. I realized there was one thing I wanted to bring up about Kat that I thought was something worth mentioning, but we can also talk about it if we talk about her parents at the end. Mm-hmm. But I think, or maybe I'll just say it now. I thought
you can, because
I thought it was interesting that at the end, she's kind of looking ahead and giving her parents kind of a view of what happens in the community, in the future, so that they could kind of make peace.
Yeah.
As they moved back to the afterlife.
Mm-hmm. But at least they got a really dope dream fair to go attend.
Yeah.
They got VIP full access.
I know.
For eternity, so that's pretty cool.
And they did. I mean, the dream fair looked infinitely more fun than that screen fair.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no. I think I'll take the dream fair instead.
Yeah. You don't want to hang out with Scream Fair, Daddy?
No. I don't.
So yes, that's really all I've got, even just Wendell and Wild as far as that stuff. I mean, yeah, we didn't talk about a lot of like their deal with the Claxons on just raising the members of the
council,
the old guard council, so that they can get the votes to pass the prison through, and make sure don't raise anybody else, because there's way too many people that we killed that could speak out against us, basically.
Which is why they didn't want to bring back Kat's parents. But I think, too, the council recognizing them as alive is a bit of a stretch. Because despite the fact of them standing there, I don't know that they could have been considered living things.
Great.
So are we moving on to my favorite character in this movie next?
We could. I think that's what's next on mine.
Excellent.
So I don't have a lot to say that I haven't already said.
I know, we've said so much. Raul.
Yes. Loved the character of Raul. Which the first time we see him, like, immediately seems very interested in Kat. Not like in a romantic way, but like, just friendship and like wanting to know somebody who's so unique, and like really keeps an eye on her. And then when she comes into the class, like a little like scared or nervous, but then kind of this vibe is like, actually, like, you're really cool. Like, just wants to be friends. And then Kat's constantly telling him, like, you're not my friend. You're not my friend. And he still sticks around.
But I liked that he was willing to accept her for being different, like, right away. He was intrigued by it. Instead of thinking, well, you're different, so you're bad. Or you're different, so I can't like you. And then we learn just, Raul himself is different from everyone.
Well, I mean, it's very much like right off the top, because the second that he introduces himself as Raul, you're like, well, this is a quote-unquote girls' school. And, you just think about like those kind of, traditions and things that are within society. And so like immediately I was just like, oh, this is cool. Like, there's just a, like, basic, like, they don't make a big deal out of it. There are moments where, like, his mother is, like, on the phone with somebody and has to, like, double is like, no, I said son. Like, there are those moments that are, like, he's got a good support system. His mother is incredible.
His mom was amazing.
And those things. But I just loved this inclusion of a trans character in the movie that was just, like, and he's just, it's very core to this movie. And not because he's trans, but because he's an incredible person, an incredible character who's able to be there. And the voice actor, Sam Zalaya, is also I looked into some other stuff, and like he had a lot of really great things to say, like some articles and interviews and stuff about the opportunity to represent by being in this film, and I thought it was just really cool.
Yeah, I like that they cast someone, they make it authentic by casting someone who is trans to voice this role, and again, like you said, they didn't make a big deal of it. Nobody made a big deal of it. We get one picture of Raul, who was Ramona, was her name, with Sweetie, Sloane, and Siobhan.
Yeah. And there's a moment I was like, am I going to have to reach through this screen and start punching a fictional character? Because Siobhan calls him Ramona at one point, and I'm like, oh, I got to come slap a bitch. But then, like, she immediately, like, corrects cycles back herself. And is like, I meant Raul, I'm sorry, I'm still getting used to it. And I'm like, so she's still, like, she's trying. And that's what, at the end of the day, like, that's what's important.
Trying,
yeah.
No one is going to be perfect all the time. No one can be perfect all the time. As long as you try and acknowledge when you screw up, that's all you can do. You know? And, again, Raul wasn't part of they weren't a foursome anymore, but they weren't mean to him. Yeah. They were just not close like they were before. And we also don't know how long it has been since he decided that he was a he.
Right. Which, by the way, just random, like, soapbox snarky moment. I'm like, if the evil corporate people and the demons and the evil priest can all get his gender identity correct, then you can do that to other people too. If the most evil characters in this movie are good about it, then people do. Right.
Exactly. I mean,
don't be worse than the most evil characters imaginable in this movie.
No.
Respect people's identities.
Oh my God. I mean,
don't be shitty.
So so I guess what I'm saying is we don't know how long it's been that they've been adjusting to this change, because it's a change for them too. Like, not as big of a change as it is for Raul, but it's just an adjustment, and it takes time.
Yeah, but just as a character, like I said, I liked Raul. I like that kid.
Raul was great.
He's creative and smart and caring. And then we see, his mother is investigating the brewery fire, trying to prove that the Claxons were behind it and needs the witness. And then Raul's the one that's able to deliver those witnesses to his mother. And that was just, it was great. He's a great witness, which again, kind of called back within there. Kat is the one that like grabs him and is just like, I need a witness for this summoning, and you're it.
Well, he's willing to make the big moves. He's the one that's willing to bring her parents back when Wendell and Wild had reneged on their promise. Like, he's willing to go the extra mile to do what's right for his friends, even if Kat says they're not friends. So.
Yeah, and I love the line when they're back at the school and Kat's like, they lied to me, they didn't bring my pet. And then Raul just goes, well, maybe demons aren't the most trustworthy creatures to make a deal with. And I'm like, that's a very good point.
Yeah, I appreciated that as well.
The voice of reason that we all need.
Yeah, there's all,
And it was his artwork that brought Belzer around too, so.
That artwork was beautiful. What he was doing with painting on the rooftops. Yeah. Oh, and it basically was his mom is like a Mayan princess or queen or, warrior. That was just incredible.
Fighting off the two-headed Klaxon dragon by herself while defending the people. Yeah, it was.
Exactly.
It's cool.
So, poetic.
Yeah.
Loved it. Yeah, that's all I have.
I've got a few other sections that.
Well, that's all.
Like that,
that's all I have.
That's all you have
him.
for Raul.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because I've got I have two more character sections. One that I just kind of have school people, mainly Sister Helly and Father Bests, and some of the stuff going on there that I could run through quickly, and then a couple more notes on the Claxons and what's going on there. So yeah, the school people stuff. I think we've talked about most of them. James Hong. There's some very small, very round nuns.
Oh my goodness! I couldn't decide if they creeped me out or if they were supposed to be pets. Sister Daly and Sister Chinstrap is what they're credited as. Mm-hmm. Oh my god, they were so bizarre. But yes. I couldn't decide, like I said. I just couldn't decide if I was supposed to think they were, pets or I don't know. He called them at one time penguins. Yeah. And I thought maybe that's just his term for the sisters. I don't know.
Yeah, the black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then Sister Helly brings in the mimic octopus, which I got very excited about because for a very long time I've been obsessed with mimic octopus.
Really?
It's one of my favorite creatures of all time. It's just so cool. I've watched so many videos on YouTube of mimic octopuses just doing because and it was cool because the movie showed actual things that mimic octopus they're some of the best stuff that they do is a sea snake or the lionfish or kind of they'll kind of look like a crab that can walk around they it showed for the things that they're really good at doing. And I was that's actually very spot on. That's really cool. And it made me think and
the fact that that.
Yeah. I'm a nerd about that. I'm obsessed with the mimic octopus. And then it made me go down a little rabbit hole where I had to pause my the movie and go on okay, no more prep for a second. I go on this rabbit hole. I was is there an aquarium somewhere in the United States that has one? And I couldn't find anything, but now it's a new goal of mine to see one. The wild would be awesome, but probably never. But even just in captivity, but just to see a mimic octopus, I think would be incredible. I just have to find somewhere that has one. I don't know how, but I'm gonna find a way. Let's see, Sister Helly stuff. Again, and things get answered because I just kind of take these notes as I'm watching because it's oh, she knows that the mark means something. That's interesting. It's okay, well, she was a Hell Maiden herself. I thought it was they took a long time setting up the mysteries that just made me really stay on the hook. Where I was when is the reveal of this going to come? Even Manberg, where he's just Sister Helly is a thief, and you should have returned it. Now we'll both be in the dark. And I'm what is
going on? And I wonder, did they call her Sister Helly because she is a Hell Maiden? Is that what she picked for her name? Because I know that some nuns they pick part of their name. And I wasn't sure if I was supposed to trust her or not, and it made me nervous.
Yeah, I was very sus of her for a lot of the movie until we get the reveal of exactly what she was, and it was oh, she's good. I loved after Father Bests comes back from the dead and shows back up at school the next day, and his reports of my death were greatly exaggerated. And he cracks himself up, and I was that is an incredible Mark Twain reference, and I love it so much.
I had a feeling that you would have been all over that.
Yeah, I love that. Let's see, yeah. I guess I was still putting... So, Manberg was a demon hunter that, teamed up with a Hell Maiden, and then she decided she didn't like the way things were going with that. It's weird. She's a nun, but she has almost a positive connection to demons in some ways. So she doesn't like the methods of this demon hunter, so she takes his bear so he can't track down demons anymore and leaves.
Yeah. I didn't understand that at first, but then it all came together, and so was understand so that I could figure. I got it after. Yeah.
And then of course Father Best, again, I think at the end of the day he was just as greedy and selfish as anybody else. But it's he's not as smart either. He shows back up to the Claxons, so you're really going to trust the people who murdered you over a deal to make another deal with you. Okay, sure.
Does not make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Irmgard Klaxon just looked like a cross between the other mother and Cruella de Vil. Like, she just was... She had those eyes that were like she hadn't slept in months, and her hair was out of control, and her husband just seemed more laid back as far as, like, he didn't look as crazed in his appearance. The two of them, once...
I love it at the end when they're getting arrested and he tries to throw her under the bus. Like, she was the one that did all the murders. I was just there. And then her response to that is to, like, try to, like, strangle him with the handcuffs. And it's like, okay, maybe he was right.
And
about
his
that.
toupee flies off. It's just perfect. It's so perfect. He resembled someone for me. And
absolutely. Yeah, I think that was on purpose.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, sir, director. Yes.
Yeah.
Henry Selick, I appreciate it.
Yeah, those are the only, like, notes really I have left is Klaxon stuff, which when Father Bess looks at the phone and goes, oh, it's like Klaxons are calling. And I was like, ooh, really? Are they going to play a show? Because they're pretty great. And I was like, oh, not the band Klaxons. Damn.
Oh, there is a band named Klaxons?
There's a band called Klaxons, and they're incredible.
Oh, my gosh.
And I was like, ooh, I haven't thought about Klaxons in forever. They're really... And then I was like, oh.
No,
not the band.
No, they definitely are not the
piece
band.
Of music that didn't... No, they're not. I'll have to show you some Klaxons music, I think.
Okay, because I've never even heard of them.
Yeah. It was a callback. I hadn't thought about them in years, but I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah, and then we learned that, the Klaxons are very, very evil, but also they're Siobhan's parents.
Yeah. Siobhan is nothing like them.
No, thank God.
Not at all.
Yeah, and so they murdered Father Best because he, like... I was trying to figure, it was like because he took in Cat, and then it was like mocking their efforts, but it was really like he was just no use to them anymore. Like, he's like, well, okay, now your usefulness is up.
So we're getting rid of you.
You know too much.
Yeah.
But you also have dirt on us. So, like, because it was the way that he reminded them. He was like, hey, I vouched for you in the brewery fire. Basically admitting, like, I know what you did, but I didn't tell anyone. And so they're like, oh, okay, well, we'll make sure that you can't now.
Yeah. Imagine they did not have hair cream resuscitation on their bingo card for the year.
No, probably not.
So, interesting thing. Do you remember a Black Mirror episode, Metalhead?
Yeah.
Okay. So the actress, Maxine Peake, voiced Irmgard.
Nice.
Klaxon. And I've recognized the name, so I had to go look. It's like, oh yeah, I saw her in a couple of different things on British TV. And then it's like, oh yes, she was in Metalhead. I remember that. The little dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see if there's any other notes. So, yeah, because Raoul's mother, we talked about needing a witness to pin the fire on them, and then the only witness that I knew of, they just killed with the father. But
yep,
it gets brought back around. Literal corporate zombies. I mentioned that, which was fun. And then when they show up to like put in their votes and the salute making the arm fly off,
and oh my
really
god, that
funny visual gag that I appreciated.
Yeah.
And then my big one that I mentioned kind of early off, the sentiment of this movie, a really big also theme of it that's an underlying that I fully agree with. I was like, for real, I was like, yes, PSA, fuck private prisons.
Yeah.
And this movie kind of played as a real shining light on that very, very real school to prison pipeline problem in this country that we've talked about earlier.
Yeah, it's a huge
which
problem.
is a much bigger issue and real evil than things like demons and stuff that this movie also uses to show that point. But that's like the real evil that this movie is really pointing out is this capitalist like private prison kind of thing.
There were a lot of
look into that because I love Orange is the New Black, and there was like a whole like season or two where they really focused on the whole privatized prison like storyline stuff, and that was the first time my eyes had really been opened up to that, and I was like, wait, that's a real thing, people. I was like, that's fucked.
It is.
So yeah,
it is. Yeah, it's just, and I lost my thought. I don't know where it went. That happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's horrifying if you think about it. And we can't... I feel like this movie was filled with metaphors. It was filled with different call-outs and shout-outs to different things and a lot of representation. It wasn't just, okay, these are the demons, or, okay, this is Belzer. They represented something bigger in the world and in the country. So I think you have to look at this movie. You almost have to watch it twice. You have to watch it through the first time to recognize everything, and then watch it through a second time to really get the message about some of the parts that I think they were trying to get across.
So I had 3 other little notes. Siobhan, again, I loved seeing kind of the switch in her where I was like, yes, be the rebel you need to be. Because she like does the research, like after talking to Kat, like she like goes to her parents and is like, no, I saw what you're actually doing. And it was like, it was that scene again with that, like, oh, the private prisons, where she spells out what's going on. Like you said, there's a lot of metaphors, but in this instance, it was like on the
It was
nose.
real.
Like, no, this is literally exactly what is happening in our country right now with a lot of these things, where she's like, oh, so you cram all these people in, give them terrible, like cheap food, terrible food, no living space. And it's also, you can save money and make money off of them. Like she spells out what it is. And instead of being like, oh my God, you found out our terrible thing.
No, they're like,
oh, you get it. Yeah. It's like, you see, how smart are we?
Yeah.
You know, and
promise me you'll come. Well,
and I loved her like, promise. Oh, I'll be there. Like, yeah, I was like, yes. Like,
I think too, looking at kids breaking away and not just supporting blindly what their parents are doing was another thing that I think, having an identity. And I think when kids get to be teenagers, they start to try to figure out who they are. And some kids have trouble breaking away from what their parents' beliefs are, or what, or how they fit into the world. And I think this movie kind of shows that it's okay, to be different, and it's okay to realize that maybe what you're thinking doesn't have to match up with things.
And then last 2 notes are just really small little like things I noticed that were fun. At the end there with like the bulldozers and like that whole, pickets and stuff, that of course the governor that goes in to introduce the whole thing, governor bribes, which how deliciously on the nose. Incredible. And then lastly, the note is I love that the elderly councilwomen knitted their own picket sign. I thought that was amazing.
Of course they did. They were working on it. As soon as they all came in and voted it down, they were like, we've been trying to defeat you for years. We have to keep... I felt like they were the last... they were the last stand. They were the ones that had to continue to be... They stayed in the community to continue to fight the good fight to stop the Klaxons. I don't know, Pake. I think we did it.
Yeah, so that's all the notes I've got on it. Yeah, it was...
Yeah, there was one more thing, actually. Okay. So they dedicated this movie to Mark Musumeci, who is an electricity consultant who worked on almost all of Selick's films, starting way back with The Nightmare Before Christmas, all of that. And they dedicated that to him because he passed away.
Oh, that's nice. And not that he passed away, but that it was dedicated to him. Yeah. That's good. So I can't just kind of looking for it was funny because this week was just with when we're, again, the inside baseball things, like our recording schedule versus when we release things. Like we're recording this the week of 4th of July, like it's a holiday week. And so it's like, oh, we'll do something light, animated movie. And then it's like, oh, we, of course, as has usually been, we pick an animated movie and it turns out to be chock full of all kinds of, like I said, social and political themes that we can really break down and talk for over an hour and a half about. But
I like that because I like when a movie surprises me.
Yes. Yeah.
And I knew when I got halfway through, it's like, this is not going to be the quick little episode that we thought it was going to be. This is going to be one of our good, deep discussions.
Yeah, which I'm so
excited about. So
into it.
Yeah, this was great.
So, love that. Yeah. There goes the feedback phone, which perfect timing. Like, hopefully, listeners and stuff had some thoughts about this one as well. So
Oh, yeah. There we go.
All right, we do have one piece of feedback this week from the ever wonderful Catherine, definitely coming through, watching all the movies, giving us his thoughts. We love that. So she says about this one here this week, whew, those first 3 minutes were intense. The trauma of seeing that still broken guardrail immediately made me understand how much Kat was still hurting. I loved how they balanced that sadness with Gabby the Goat, Beelzebub, and Wendell Wild with their hallucinogenic hair cream that also resurrects the dead. Between the amazing stop-motion animation and the plot that hit on everything from fixing elections to private prisons, I definitely need to watch this one again. Yeah,
Ooh.
it's a really great summation, Catherine. That it covers so much while still being funny and goofy. It's very deep, and yeah, it's a good one. I'm glad that we watched this. I probably would have just stayed on the outskirts of my radar forever if it wasn't for this podcast. We get to watch a lot of fun stuff that I take time to do. So yeah, we find special gems like that.
We definitely do. And we always joke about, if you ever want to get to certain movies, just start a podcast about them, because that's when you'll be sure to watch them. Like right away, you'll get them to the top of the list. Well, if you'd like to submit feedback like Catherine, you can do so by finding us on Facebook and Instagram at Run For Your Lives Podcast. You can email us at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. And if you're enjoying the show, tell your friends. We are available on all other podcast players, including Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Go to runforyourlivespodcast.com for all the links you'll ever need, and give us a review on Apple Podcasts, as that's the best way to share the love and get us out there even more. We really appreciate it.
We do indeed. And speaking of that, got to give some shout outs to things going on in the podcast universe around us, starting with Indeed, my other podcast, Strange Indeed, of course, with Rima. We wrapped our coverage of Sweet Tooth this week. It is up and out, our series finale conversation. Just kind of looking back on all things Sweet Tooth, the journey we've been on, and covering that finale and talking about all that it gave us. And yeah, it was emotional, but it was fun, and it was great. A lot of good stuff over there. So yeah, if you're a Sweet Tooth fan, go check that out for sure. And then me and Rima will be on another little break while we find what we're going to do next. We did talk a little bit about it on that episode at the end, as far as some stuff that's coming up in the future that we're interested in and excited about. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, Sweet Tooth coverage is done, and a little sad, but also happy that it happened.
It was such a great series, and I love that I was able to listen to your episodes every week. I don't usually go week to week with TV series, but I really tried with this one.
Yeah, it was special. It was a great show. Yeah, aside from that, lots of other great Podcastica stuff, of course, for everybody to check out. With the cast of us still continuing their Walking Dead rewatch, this week doing Season 3, Episode 5, Say the Word. Lucy is on a bit of a vacation right now, so Jim got to jump in and join Jason for that one. So definitely check that out. Jim's fun. I've podcasted with him on some Patreon stuff before, and he's really cool. So definitely check that out. Also, Ben and Kristen over on the Revisited podcast are back to their coverage of Ted Lasso, as they are getting close to wrapping that up. They are doing Season 3, Episode 9 this week, so getting very close. And then they'll start their rewatch coverage of The Good Place soon. Revisit that one after they're done with Ted Lasso. But, man, they still got quite the Ted Lasso finale to come up soon enough. So lots of good stuff for them to cover over there. Definitely check that out. Also, we haven't heard from Alex and Lizzie on the What Is From podcast in just a little bit, but they've got a big episode out this week, as with all the Comic-Con stuff and everything going on, From has officially announced the date for Season 3 that is coming. So they've got the trailer, the date, Comic-Con goodies, all of that stuff that they get to break down and talk about and get excited for, as From Season 3 is on the horizon. So if you want all that information and hear their thoughts on that, definitely check out What Is From on Podcastica as well. We got Still Slaying, the Buffy podcast, covering season 3, episode 21, Graduation Day, part 1. So definitely check that out if you're a Buffy fan. They're working through that stuff. Breakneck speed. Just covering all the great shows. Of course, with new shows, Cobra Kai is back for its final season, doing their kind of 3-part breakup over the next year or 6 months or so. And so this first 5 of the last season is out now, and Rima, Jason, and Richard have been covering that. So episode 2 is out now, and then they will be releasing... They just recorded episode 3 this week, so it might be up by the time you're hearing this. So definitely check that out. Cobra Kai's been really, really interesting this season. This first batch of episodes has me excited to see what all they can pull in and what they're going to do with this final season. So always give our love over to our friends over at TV Podcast Industries, who have finished up their coverage of The Boys, and now they've got an episode up this week where they went back. Because of all the Boys and stuff going on, they were too busy to cover week to week, but they did whole season and all 8 episodes of the Star Wars series, The Acolyte. They just dropped their episode this week covering that. All of their thoughts on that series, or at least the first season, maybe, as a whole. So if you're a Star Wars fan and watch The Acolyte, definitely check out Derek, John, and Chris over there talking about that season. But yeah, that's about it. In the other realm of stuff, other than, next week here on Run for Your Lives, or if you just need a little bit extra, me and Daphne, you can check in with our friends Jeff and Jerry along the side of the two of us as well with the Buffalo podcast. That's been going really fun. We've been having a blast with that, just being real silly. So you can always check that out for a good, quick 30-minute laugh. But coming back here for Run for Your Lives next week, we got something really fun for you. Daphne, what do we got?
Well, when a band of kidnappers get more than they bargained for, hats start rolling in the creepy house they're hiding out in. We are covering the 2024 film Abigail, that was directed by Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillette.
Yes, which if those names maybe sound familiar to you a little bit, that is the same directing team behind Ready or Not, which we had so much fun with. So it's very much in the vein of that, a very comedy horror kind of movie that was definitely a blast. So we highly recommend go checking that out, and then coming back next week, listen to our coverage on that. Give us your thoughts. We want some feedback for that one too. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah. Those directors, I've just been watching and waiting for them to come out with something else. So I'm really glad we could jump into this one.
Yeah.
With that, we've reached the end of our episode. Thanks for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run, you better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.